Big D, if you ever catch fire, I want you to stop, drop, and roll, Dick, roll.
Okay, I will.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash, widow of the web seer.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we will provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all the information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. You can also catch our upcoming Westworld coverage right there. Season 4 coming up. Finally, to hang out this live all week long, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are you reviewing today?
So, Gene, on a normal podcast, about this time, I would say something like, this is a quest 39 years in the making, and go any whatever we're going to fucking do that tied into the plot. But more importantly, this commission is the answer to a Shat mystery. Early on in the Shat days, when we used to do voting categories, we had a category for like medieval, like warrior, something along that line. It was Conan the Barbarian. There was Beastmaster. There was 6 movies, including Krull. So we did the voting. Krull won, and it was a bit suspicious because Conan the Barbarian had been winning up until the very end. So I did a little detective work, went in and found that somebody had corrupted our democratic movie process, had gone in and stacked the deck for Krull at the very end. So we excluded Krull. We did our Conan cast. And then somebody started to feel guilty. Lawrence S. started, it just aided him inside. So he wrote us and he said, hey, Shat Crew, I'm writing for a commission and to make a confession. First, my confession. I am the Russian bot who tried to stack the deck for Krull. With that off my chest, I'd like to apologize. And I desperately want you to cover the movie for me. It's one of my favorites. So I took it into my own hands and I tried to game the system. And you know what, Lawrence, you're correct. And we appreciate your honesty. And glad that you came back and commissioned the 1983 science fiction swashbuckler, Krull.
Well, and our Russian bot wrote in and said, Dear Shat Crew, I come to you as a loyal listener and lover of all things Shat, following you through Westworld, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and of course, Shat the Movies. Your deep analysis, crack commentary, and cheeky and insightful reviews have gotten me hours of pleasure over the years. From the bottom of my bowels, I thank you. You now know of the infamous story of me trying to stack the deck for one of my favorite childhood movies. I so desperately wanted it to be reviewed that I resorted to voting over and over. After being found out but anonymous, I then decided to come clean and commission the 1983 sci-fi fantasy classic Krull. Here's my history with Krull. My father has a high school friend that my brothers and I were asked to refer to as Uncle Steve.
Uh-oh.
In the early 80s, Uncle Steve was one of the first in my world to have not only 1, but 2 Betamax video players. He was also friends with the owner of one of the area's first video rental stores. Uncle Steve would rent and then copy and return the videotapes, slowly amassing a huge collection of classics, mostly R-rated fare. I was introduced to a smorgasbord of R-rated movies, including many horror classics such as Halloween, My Bloody Valentine, April Fool's Day, Visiting Hours, and Prom Night at the age of 7. During one visit to Uncle Steve's house, I was given the choice to look in the vault to pick the night's film. There on one of the carefully labeled white stickers was written the words, Krull. My choice was made, and I would never be the same again. The story, acting, characters, cinematography, and of course, the glaive, the coolest, eventually pointless weapon that spun its way directly into my heart. I was smitten. I did rewatch the film, and in retrospect, the film suffers from continuity issues, a rather weak story, terrible fight coordination, rather boring at some stretches, and plays out like a video game with action set pieces and cut scenes. Ultimately, it was still enjoyable enough for me to give it 3 wipes. And with that, may you mount your fire mare steeds, ride the fire into the night, and try not to crap too hard over one of my fondest movie memories. Krull forever. One of your shattiest fans, Lawrence S.
I appreciate that Lawrence isn't delusional in his commission.
Agreed.
He commissioned a movie that he himself is giving 3 wipes, like already admitting that this is a below average film. Lawrence, I appreciate that. As a person who now idolizes Blood In, Blood Out, but understands that it's not for everybody, I like that you're sticking to your guns and you're giving us a movie that you love, not necessarily a movie you think will get high praise.
Agreed.
Well, Krull is a 1983 science fantasy. It's not a swashbuckler at all.
It is a swashbuckler. It is.
No.
Krull is a 1983 science fantasy swashbuckler. I thought that had to include water of some sort.
Or pirates.
That follows a journey of Prince Colwyn and his group of outlaws on the planet Krull to save future queen Princess Lyssa from the beast and his constantly teleporting Black Fortress. Krull is notable for giving many major actors early screen roles that involve dangerous stunts and for its inflated budget, mainly due to the designers having to make numerous alterations to the sets corresponding to the heavily evolving script. An international co-production of the United States and the United Kingdom, Krull was a box office bomb upon release. Numerous reviewers have highlighted its visual effects and soundtrack, while several critics have criticized its plot as being derivative and nonsensical. The film has gone on to achieve cult film status. So Big D, Ash, we always ask where you were when you saw this movie and what your memories are of it. Big D, we'll start with you. What are your memories of Krull?
So this movie came out, I was probably 9, maybe about to be 10. And back in the day, you got to remember, there was no VHS tapes at that point. So if you didn't catch it in the theater, it could just kind of go away into the ether. And I would have bet money that I had seen this and forgotten about it, but I did not see it. I vividly remembered the poster and the VHS cover art. It is legendary. You see it and almost your imagination kicks in like you think you've seen it. But man, this was the first time in 39 years that I finally sat down and watched it. And Lawrence, thank you. It is long overdue.
Yeah, I mean, I had never seen this movie. I remember the poster. I do, but I don't remember ever having seen it. I love the fantasy genre. I think that it's a great genre. I think it's silly and fun. And once I found out it had early Hagrid and early Liam Neeson, I was like, oh, okay, so this could be pretty cool. And I was excited to watch it. I don't know if it held up to that really cool thought, but hey, it was all right.
Yeah, Krull often comes up when people are talking about the shittiest movies they've ever seen. You're in the back of a bar, someone's backyard, you're having a beer, the conversation comes up and people throw out all kinds of movies, but Krull is always the one that is the trump card. And I'm not one to watch a movie ironically. I only want to watch movies I think I'll actually enjoy or ones that are commissioned for this podcast. So I waited until this week to watch it professionally. And it is, in fact, one of the shittiest movies I have ever seen. So before the sands of life run out, let's hit that trailer.
On a distant planet, a great kingdom was ravaged by beings who came from the future to conquer the universe. Now, the only survivors follow a doubtful seer and a throneless king.
They will hold her in the Black Fortress. You must have help.
Thieves, bandits, fighters and brawlers. Desperate men. Those are the kind of men I need. Well, you heard him. We are now an army.
At the end of an impossible journey, they must fight an invincible enemy.
Here's the knowledge you seek.
I shall be your king.
In the fortress, you will face more than the Slayers.
What is about to happen to them could never have happened on Earth. Columbia Pictures presents a world apart from anything you have seen before. Krull.
A narrator describes a prophecy of a king and queen who rule their world and their son who will rule the galaxy. The planet Krull is invaded by an entity known as the Beast and his army of slayers who travel the galaxy in a mountain-like spaceship called the Black Fortress. Prince Colwyn and Princess Lyssa plan to marry and form an alliance between their rival kingdoms in the hope that their combined forces can defeat the Beast's army. The Slayers attack before the wedding ceremony is completed, killing the two kings, devastating both armies, and kidnapping the princess.
So when the movie starts out, I was under the misconception that this was like a space movie. No, this is not a space movie. This is like a medieval movie, and we get more horns in the theme than Lady Hawk. I was starting to worry right off the start, but it's obvious that this movie was trying to learn from what Star Wars had done. And The Empire Strike Back, and then we have Return of the Jedi had come out also in 83. They knew a memorable theme was important. They obviously wanted John Williams because he is the man, but they surprisingly got the second best option. Oscar winner, 9-time nominee James Horner did the score. And you want to talk about a collection of movies to have this into your IMDb? Star Trek II, Cocoon, Commando, Aliens, Willow, Field of Dreams, The Rocketeer, Legend of the Fall, Braveheart, The Devil's Own, Titanic, Jumanji, Mask of Zorro, Apollo 13, Avatar, The Amazing Spider-Man, Beautiful Mind, Spider-Man No Way Home. This dude, man, they hit the jackpot. Part of that $50 million obviously went to the score.
Mask of Zorro, huh?
It's got a good soundtrack. It's got a compelling, action-packed soundtrack. It does.
How's it go?
Probably lots of horns. Probably like
just curious.
Castanets.
Also,
definitely
The Devil's
castanets.
Own. How's that soundtrack sound?
Probably very intriguing, very like foreboding. Yeah.
I just always love your list. Like Aliens, The Rocketeer, Willow,
Listen,
Titanic, Braveheart, The Mask of Zorro.
do you know he was nominated for an Academy Award for An American Tale, the cartoon about the mouse? I didn't throw that in here. Yeah. Ash, what does that soundtrack sound like?
Somewhere.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Out there,
Okay, I'll shut up then.
someone saying. Oh, yeah, we know it.
Okay.
Quiz me again.
Listeners, if you enjoy watching people do menial things like hike mountains, roam across fields, or simply ride horseback for extended periods of time, but set to rousing orchestral scores, this is the movie for you.
Yeah, it's like the screensaver of movies or like the Yule log YouTube video of movies. Like it has no real purpose. It's just scenery and it's just there to be put in the background. It doesn't harm anyone, but it kind of means nothing.
You know when you get a new video game and you haven't unlocked fast travel yet? That's this movie.
But Gene gave me a warning. He said, this is 2 hours, but it goes really quick. I put it on. It was kind of late at night. And I found myself like, I don't know if anybody has an Apple TV. When the Apple TV goes to sleep, you get these beautiful sweeping, like aerial, like drone. That's what this was. I was like, wow, look at the mountains.
Like
Look at the lake.
screensavers?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, this looks so beautiful. It was so nice. I know Ash said it, but I'm agreeing with it.
I mean, it is. I mean, it truly is. But let's talk about Colwyn, because we get introduced to Colwyn, our big hero, our Harrison Ford, Han Solo wannabe. And the first issue I have here is that Colwyn is in like this huge battle scene. And then he just kind of takes his sweet time. He hangs out. He watches his dad get shot in slow-mo. He watches his girl get carried off. And if you've not seen this movie, the way it's shot, he has enough time to stop, do a full-on, in real time, slow double take, gaze lovingly at his princess that's being carted off, and then turn back to the other side, watch his dad get killed, and do nothing about it. He just stands there. Like, I didn't know what he was doing. And then let's talk about his name. Colwyn, because I couldn't figure out what his name was when they said it the first couple of times. And then you get Lyssa, who's being carted off, and she starts this nasally screaming of his name. And we did this thing when we had kids. We did the scream test for our kids' names. So, like, can you yell their name and it not sound horrible? Like, is it easy to yell at them? And so we would do that with our kids. And Colwyn fails that test every single time because it sounds so much worse when she yells it at him. And I think this movie hinges on us liking this guy. And from the outset, I just thought he kind of sucked.
I feel like you gave your kids a gift for life, because as a child, when you yell their name, it's not weird. But when they're adults and someone else yells their name, also okay.
Yep.
I'm not a huge fan of Colwyn, but dude's good looking. He's got good abs. He's got some really nice pants. The rest can go. But Ash, your issue was with Colwyn being slow to act and very into gazing. I've got other issues. He loses his family. He loses his kingdom. He loses his wife on the same day, which happens to be his wedding day, which also is his fault because he fucking led slayers to the castle. But beyond that, hours later, this motherfucker is smiling. He's making friends. Like, think about this. You lose your family, your kingdom, your wife on your wedding day. I'd be fucked up for a few years. But we see this all the time in movies, especially 80s movies, right? Red Dawn. And I got to ask you guys, like, do you prefer a character who is just mirthless? Like, one bad thing happens and they're just in the fucking dumps for the rest of the movie, let's say like a John Wick. Or would you rather have a guy who plucks right up and kind of carries you through the movie?
Well, I mean, I think you can guess my answer. I mean,
yeah, I really should have said Big D.
Yeah. Mirthless is kind of my thing. So Big D.
Well, I think I don't want him to be moping around. I don't need that. But mention them. Mention, oh, I miss my father, my mother, everyone in my kingdom, everyone on my planet. Just bring it. And I don't want you, when we get, Ergo the Magnificent, when he turns into like the fat duck and he stumbles around. Colwyn should not be giggling. You should not be giggling for years, but I don't want you to mope.
Yeah, well, and the other problem in this movie is you've got the old one who is your mirthless person. Like, he's the most depressing, like, sad, angry, angsty man in this movie. And you're talking about how he lost all these things. And Colwyn at least says it like, have you ever lost your dad and your wife all in one day? And then the old one looks at him and it says, well, I also haven't become king in a day. Like, it's so melodramatic. And he's also, just a note, a horrible caretaker, because Colwyn wakes up on the stairs. Like, he's taking care of him on the stairs. Like, you couldn't bring him down to like a flat surface.
Again, if you want to get the best shot of his chest hair and his abs, he needs to be angled on some stairs. This movie is all about angles.
So he's got that magic healing paste that he saved him with. Are you telling me nobody else in that throne room could have been saved? Was he like saving the paste?
Well, because Colwyn's got like a scratch. It's like not even a deep wound. Like, they didn't even spend the money on the special effects, because they did that later when you put his hand in lava goo. But, so they had no money left over for a scabby area. But it's like a little, like, paper cut on his chest.
Yeah, and at this point in the movie, I'm needing some answers. Ash, I need to know, what are the rules? What's going on? So the beast, he has landed like his rocket, like, mountain ship, and we understand he wants to conquer worlds. He comes out, he devastates, he kills, but for some reason he is dead set on this specific princess. Now, it's important for me this establishes everything that follows in the movie, right? And I need to know, is it sexual? Is it the beast is lonely? What's his motivation for this?
It's the prophecy. They said you just got to find a princess with an old lady name. Apparently, Lyssa on the planet Krull is an old lady name. And then you bang her and you give birth to the ruler of the galaxy. He wants to give birth to the ruler of the galaxy.
But from what I understood, that was a Krull prophecy. You believe now that the beast landed there, was like, hey, this prophecy sounds good, I'm going to follow it?
If the beast is anything, he's mystical. Like, everything about that he's mystical. Look at his fortress. Very mystical. Everything's all bones and portals and shit.
Mm-hmm. Red eyes.
Yeah. That's, dude, if he were on Instagram, big black witch hat, really into crystals. King B follows him. Prince Colwyn is found and nursed by Ynir, the Old One, who tells him the beast can be defeated with the Glaive, a magical throwing star. Colwyn retrieves the Glaive and hunts the Black Fortress, which teleports to a new location every sunrise. As they travel, Colwyn and Ynir are joined by magician Ergo the Magnificent and a band of 9 thieves, fighters, bandits, and brawlers. Colwyn offers to clear their criminal records, successfully enlisting Torkel, Kegan, Rune, Oswin, Bardolph, Menno, Darrow, Nanog, and Quain. The Cyclops Rel later joins the group.
Okay, so I want to take some of our younger listeners back in time. Before Star Wars, the science fiction genre was not that big. There was not a blockbuster. It was not something that could generate money by toys, by movies, by other tie-ins with Burger King and McDonald's. So you could tell that Krull was trying to get onto that Star Wars like track. And I mentioned before the soundtrack, but now it is so hard knowing what Star Wars is to not see the similarities. We've got our young, handsome Harrison Ford lookalike in Colwyn. He's, of course, going to have a romantic and strong female-like attraction, the Princess Leia type, Lyssa. We have now their strong, giant guardian, Chewbacca, or as we'll call him in this movie, Rel the Cyclops. We have the old wise mentor, Obi-Wan, played by Ynir. We have a mystical weapon. It's not a lightsaber, it's a glaive, and they're going to search for the Black Fortress or the Death Star, where they're going to rescue the princess, and then, spoiler alert, they're going to blow it up at the end. We've got an army of soldiers that can't shoot. There's a mystical power. I almost screamed at the screen when we have Colwyn at the end, and he's trying to reach out. Oh, he's got to get the glaive, and the glaive is moving, and he's trying to... That is Luke Skywalker trapped in the Wampa's lair in Empire Strikes Back. It is a dead, almost shot for shot of the same scene. Even the palms up, and it's wiggling, and I'm like, dude, this is not cool.
I kept thinking to myself, they wanted to have their own Star Wars, and they went for all the things that made Star Wars great. They wanted that epic story, galactic consequences, cool gadgets, tons of friendships, and a big budget, but they completely missed the mark. And I'm not the hugest Star Wars fan, but I have newfound respect for Star Wars after seeing how horribly it could have gone.
What's so funny is I didn't pick up on any of that while I was watching this, but now that you're saying it, I'm even more annoyed at this movie because I think you're completely right. And like Star Wars, this movie spends a lot of time studying the scene. So we already talked about the screensaver nature of the scenery, but I do think that this part of the movie really shows off the fact that the best part of the movie is the scenery because you've got the mountains, you've got the springs, and I appreciate that they were using that scenery to try to make this movie feel epic. And from time to time, they succeed. Like when they're crossing through the big sweeping mountainous areas and they're in the valleys, it looks great. But then other times, like when the Rosebud guy comes and gets like thrown into the lake, like that area there looked completely fake. And in a weird way, it looked like an early like 90s ride from Universal Studios. So I don't know if either of you ever went on E.T., the ride where you rode the bicycle.
Yes.
When we get to E.T.'s planet and like the foliage is like too waxy and too green to be real, but it's kind of charming. Like that's what this scene looked like. And then I realized, okay, so this is this movie. They're trying really hard to be something, but failing miserably at the things that they're trying to be.
They built not just a world, but it looked like worlds. Mm-hmm. They spent $50 million making this movie compared to Return of the Jedi's $32.5 million. But Return of the Jedi didn't just give us scenery. It gave us the forests of Endor. You felt like you're really there. Speeder bikes and these really incredible visual effects. So it just goes to show that you can't buy a beautiful movie. It's got to take some imagination. It's got to take some style.
But I think it also takes some fiscal responsibility. You got to know what to spend the money on. I found myself highlighting items that I was like, shit, that's not cheap. That's not cheap. The opening sequence of the castle assault, that is a solid wood, like 40-foot door. That was not a fake prop. You could see that shit come down. I was like, man, I could picture the carpenters charging 20, 30 grand for that door alone. Then you have those spear torches that they're carrying that look like they've been machined and milled. The costumes look good. But then you get to the Bog of Stench where, you know, you're walking through and it looks like, you said, like a leftover scene from another movie. It just was so uneven.
Yeah, and while you guys were, in your Star Wars reference, I was feeling so derivative of like a Robin Hood type thing because there's this scene where, our guy Corwin, he goes and he meets the thieves. And that felt so Robin Hood meeting the merry men. And, you're talking about how he's giggly, like he's actually merry in this moment. And I know that the Kevin Costner Robin Hood monstrosity came out like 10 years after this, but they had to have pulled from this movie greatly because even down to like the fake drowning, where Little John fake drowns and Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, like the same thing happens here. Like, am I alone in feeling this reference?
You mean nobility mixing with bandits and taking to the woods to defeat a great evil for the good of the people? No, I don't see it, Ash. I don't think it's present in this movie. And what's crazy about it is in Robin Hood, you at least had several different characters who shined in their own way. You've got like 9 bandits, brawlers, thieves in this group, but you can't really tell one apart from the other personality-wise. I mean, sure, they look different. Hagrid's got a mustache and all, but Torkel, he's kind of cool, like their leader. And then you get Ergo, who is the only standout character, other than your title characters. And there's so much potential with Ergo. He's the magician. He's like this diminutive, pompous wizard, and he miscasts spells and he tries to compensate for all that by projecting false confidence. This is a character that works in a lot of different movies and shows. I mean, you see it in Jaskier the Bard in The Witcher or Orko in He-Man, but David Battley, who plays Ergo, he makes him almost unlikable. And then they add this gag of him shifting into animals until, surprise, you know how it's going to end. He finally becomes something useful. He becomes a tiger in the end. No.
I don't know. I mean, they had me when he transitions into like that awkward dog. That's like the really weird stop motion cartoony transition.
It's a very cute puppy.
Yeah, it was super cute. And then the opening, like I already mentioned, where he comes in like the little firework and he splashes around in the pool. I mean, for me, Ergo was one of the best parts of this movie. He's not amazing. I'm not saying he is, but compared to everyone else around him, he's carrying a lot of the weight here.
Okay, but hear me out. Let's say you take him and he's played by Russell Brand.
No?
Big D?
No. I actually like this performance. And I'm a little older. So I immediately, when I saw David Battley, I said, holy shit, that is the school teacher from Willy Wonka. That's the teacher who cancels class when they find out they're doing the golden tickets. I almost fell out of my chair also when now Ergo the Magnificent, he's talking with the little boy, I forget what his name is, and he says, do you have any sugar bowls or gumdrops? Boys like you always have candy. I was like, this has to be some inside joke tied back to Willy Wonka. Otherwise, why would he be saying this?
I thought that was the only enjoyable scene that he was in when he's like repeating his Ergo the Magnificent, narrow in purpose, wide in vision thing to a little boy. And the only person who he can actually connect with. Like that was actually an oddly genuine moment in an otherwise stupid movie.
I totally agree. And I can understand why this movie didn't do well. This is one of the worst cases in our 278 movies or whatever we've done of false advertising. You look at the poster. We've all known the poster. We talked about it. We hadn't seen the movie, but we know the poster. It focuses on one thing, the glaive. In the poster, he's standing there. The glaive, for some reason, is shooting laser beams out of it. It looks badass. It looks incredibly dangerous. It's impractical to use. It would probably cut your fingers off the first time you threw it and catch it. But it's going to play a big part in the movie. It's going to be great. Nope. You get the side quest in the beginning. We've got to find it. Colwyn's got to climb the mountain. He's got a free solo. You got to dodge an obstacle. There's some small falling rocks. And then you got to wear your tight little pants, like Gene said. And then you got to find the vagina crack in the rock. You go up into the vagina crack. You reach into the lava and you pull out the glaive with your bare hand. After that, the glaive disappears for 90 minutes. He doesn't practice with the glaive. We don't know what the glaive does. When there's danger, he doesn't even pull the glaive out. It's almost like it's not part of the movie. And I could see if I paid for a ticket in 1983, I would have been pissed off.
I mean, did you want like some sort of a training scene in Dagobah where he's like learning to use it correctly? Listen, Ynir, the old one, he takes Colwyn to the mountain. And as you said, Big D, he goes through that entire trial. I'm thinking, oh, fuck, the movie's going to turn it up a notch here. He's going to have to survive some horrific encounter to obtain this legendary weapon that nobody else on the planet has claimed. And Ynir even says to him, he's like, in his Obi-Wan voice, if you don't come back with it, you won't be coming back at all. Colwyn scrabbles up some rocks, navigates a hot cave, and kapow, he's got the glaive.
Yeah, I mean, I went straight to like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and like Spike getting his soul back. I'm like, oh, he's going to have trials. And not only was the gooey lava dumb, but then he picks it up and y'all, the random like disintegration of the volcanic rock around the glaive as it just kind of crumbled off. So disappointing.
But I want him to at least like feel the lava. Put your hand on top of it. If there's a fire next door, we learned, Gene, from Backdraft that you touch the handle on the door. You got to feel. He doesn't even try to like poke a stick in the lava, put his hand near it. He just jams his hand in the lava.
Wait, it took you till Backdraft to know you touched the handle to find out if a room has a fire? I learned that in like first grade.
I probably knew it in first grade, but I was just referencing our movie catalog, trying to drum up some clicks.
Big D, if you ever catch fire, I want you to stop, drop, and roll, Dick, roll.
Okay, I will.
Well, Colwyn's group travels to the home of the Emerald Seer and his apprentice, Titch, but the beast's hand magically appears and crushes the Seer's vision. The group loses Quain to a Slayer attack and Enog to quicksand. A changeling kills the Emerald Seer and assumes his form, but Rel and Colwyn discover and slay it. The beast exerts remote command of Kegan's wife, Merith's helper, who first attempts to seduce Colwyn, then tries to kill him. Ynir journeys to the Widow of the Web, an enchantress who murdered their only child, and the widow reveals where the Black Fortress will be at sunrise. She gives Ynir the sand from an enchanted hourglass that will help keep a badly injured Ynir alive on his journey back to the group. As the crystal spider attacks the widow, Ynir flees the web and returns to the group to reveal the location of the Black Fortress. And as he speaks, he loses the last of the sand and he expires.
So, Gene, you complained on Friday about how a lot of that movie is just like sketches tied together. And this movie is similar because I actually read a review before watching it about how this is the type of film that you can just watch anytime it comes on TBS, no matter what time you come into the movie. Has it been 5 minutes in or is it an hour in? Because you catch what you can and your viewing experience is not the lesser for you having missed the rest of it. Because you can enjoy a scene and it doesn't necessarily affect anything else because none of the fucking legends tie together at all. And I'm going to go out on a limb here for, people like our commissioner who like this movie. Like, maybe this would have been better as like one of those silly TV shows, like a la like Xena, the warrior princess, because that show is silly. It's campy, but doing a show like that would allow for some of this to be like kind of unpacked more. And I'm not saying I'd watch it because I also didn't watch Xena, but lots of people did. And there's some good stuff here that maybe if it wasn't so disjointed, we would have liked.
Totally agree. Some of the ideas in this movie aren't half bad. You got a Black Fortress that moves around every day. That's pretty cool. It's handy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. A woman who killed her only child and because of it was cursed to age alone in a killer spider's web. I mean, it's macabre. It's up my alley. Yeah. A race of two-eyed beings who give one eye for the power to see the future, but they're cursed to only see the day they die. That's rad. And I think that might be the biggest crime of the film, Ash, is that they've got some cool ideas that could have been standalone episodes, but it really took someone better than who they had writing this movie to tie it all together.
Yeah, I agree. But some of what you just said just really also doesn't fucking make sense, right? Like the spider lady. Like, I get it. Like the spider's cool. It's a crystal spider. Yeah. The sand thing on its own. Okay, cool. But like, why the sand and the spider? Like, how do the two things work? Like, can the spider hear the sand? Because the spider see the sand? And what does the spider have to do with her, like, infanticide? And also, can I just point out, and I know here comes a 1-star review, like, why are the two women in this film, well, the three, one is seducing him, one is, like, useless inside a fortress that gets moved around, and she's just there to be pretty, and then the other one has to be somebody who killed their baby because they were so upset because they were broken up with.
I don't think we established the beast is male, though.
Okay, well, the biologically female women in this movie.
Oh, hold on, time out. You guys were preaching about the legend. The legend has to have a male and female partner, correct?
Oh no, this is Krull. You could two women could potentially.
You just got to give them the
Krull. I
fire
don't
and
know
the
how
water.
reproduction works. Yeah, it might be fire and water thing. I don't know.
Okay, maybe that's the extended version legend. But a bigger problem I have, Ash, is the fact that characters have information and knowledge that doesn't make any sense. They haven't earned it. Along the quest, they didn't learn a fact, and at the end, it comes into play. We have to go away from the center. The beast is super powerful here. How do you know that?
She's been living with him for like a week. You learn things.
Oh my goodness. It's laughable because the people, the characters, they just do things and you don't know why they did it. They use some big words and some story and whatever. Nobody questions it. But I don't see that there's any chance for Krull to win. You've got no chance against the Slayers. They've got those laser staffs. Okay, our heroes come in. They seem to have nothing above maybe medieval tech, bladed weapons. There's no siege weapons, no explosives we've seen. Every fight is an utter massacre. Does Colwyn even break out the glaive? Hell no. Let's keep it in this little pouch. One day we're gonna get to this, right? And their main goal is to get to the Dark Fortress. How about you even the playing field? When you get one of the Slayers down, pick up a weapon. Try to have some kind of technical, fair battlefield, because otherwise you're just going to continue to lose guys.
I'm going to take this point by point. So the glaive thing. Imagine you're Colwyn. You know you need the glaive to defeat the beast. You run into some Slayers, you throw the glaive. Maybe you lose the glaive. You get stuck in a Slayer, it flies out a window. You don't know where it's going to go. Now you've got no glaive. You got to hold on to the glaive till the end. It makes sense.
It's like Mjolnir. It's like Thor's hammer. It's going to come back.
He doesn't know that at the time. He's never thrown it before.
So put a tether on it. Tie a piece of rope. You throw it, and that's what I would do if I was learning.
Yes, you know what'll keep the spinning blade thing attached to you? A rope. The spinning blade thing that can cut through like the toughest stone on planet Krull.
Well, we didn't know that at that point.
And the Slayers, I think their weapons are powered by the Slayers themselves. Like we see they have like some sort of an ammunition, but it seems that their supercharginess is what makes them boom, right? And honestly, I think this is one bright point of the movie. The Slayers, they're slow, they're clumsy, and they're dumb. You have to make them OP so that viewers aren't wondering how the fuck they win at anything, right? Think about Masters of the Universe, right? It's like if you have to make those guys OP so that you don't go, wow, why are these bumbling, slow-moving dipshits able to conquer entire planets? I just don't understand why they have to make that BB-8 noise every time they die. It's very distracting.
Yeah, they reminded me of zombies, but not like the 28 Days Later zombies, like the George Romero version, where like they're so bumbly, you have to be dumb and slow as fuck to die because of them.
But don't they also appear when they crack the helmets that a slug comes out and goes into the ground? Yeah. How about you guys stab the slug? Aren't those going to go back and get like a new suit?
Dude, they're fast as fuck.
Oh, well, at least try to get the slug. Don't just stand there. You kill one. Hey, guys, next time the slug comes out, whoever's closest to it, try to stab it.
Titch, you're on slug duty. Well, Big D, you have your good evening, and Ash has her laugh and her, my vagina is that. Mm-hmm. I think it's time that I established my tagline, and it applied to Titanic, and it applies here. Chill on the special effects. I understand it's 1983. I understand filmmakers are limited by the bounds of technology, but they didn't have to go so hard. I don't need to see fire in people's hands during a wedding. Or crazy idea, just use real fire. Fucking put some lighter fluid in somebody's hand. It's okay. I don't need to see the beast's rubber hand reach out and crush the seer's visions. The visions can just fall apart. And I especially don't need a person who can easily just choke an old man to death to suddenly spring these like garbage looking extendo nails to pierce his neck. They went overboard on the effects. And I believe that fewer effects would actually make this movie better.
Right, because it becomes unintentionally funny. Because, if you didn't have them, it would help you avoid the fact that the weapon that they kill the extendo nail guy with, that it looks just like a giant fucking tuning fork. Like, it's just laughable and not in a fun way. Blood in, blood out was fun to laugh at because, like, you were, like, in on a joke. This was just, like, grown laugh at.
But, man, I think a key part of most of these quest movies is as you're putting together your team, we get to see where you're meeting them, how you're convincing them, why they join, what is the cause. At this point in the movie, we've gotten zero buy-in. I don't know, why is everyone so willing to join this hopeless quest? Yes, your planet's under attack. Yes, you have children who will be slaves. Yes, it's about freedom, but it's got to be more than that. Each one has to have an individual reason. Ergo, his only reason seems to be because he got scared in the woods. Okay, I'm on board. Let's go. We got the prisoner kids. They're free. Okay, maybe, they're hoping for a better future. I got it. The seer, he just, I guess, is being very helpful. Every member of this team seems to be more than perfectly willing to die. Some of them even seem happy to die. It makes us, you got Kegan, he gets killed. Is he like, oh, my life? He's like, my traveling days have ended. Ugh. Real says my time is done, and he's basically going to lay down. I don't get it. I don't get why people are so quick and happy to die.
Yeah, I mean, I think your theory is absolutely right. Everyone was eager to die and get the fuck out of this movie. Like, Rel knows he can see his own death, so he's got an easy out. Like, he can just be like, yeah, hey, guys, wow, it looks like it's my death time. No, there's nobody attacking us right now, but you guys go ahead. I'm just going to stay here and die. And then, like you said, yeah, Liam Neeson, after he says my traveling days are ended, like, no, come on with us. He's like, nah, I'm good here. Like, just leave me alone. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Well, the group captures and rides magical fire mares to reach the Black Fortress before it teleports again. Slayers at the fortress kill Rune, while Rel sacrifices himself to hold open the crushing spaceship doors long enough to allow the others to enter. Slayers inside shoot Menno and Darrow, and Kegan sacrifices his life to save Torkel as they journey through the fortress. When Ergo and Titch get separated from the others and are attacked by Slayers, Ergo transforms into a tiger to save Titch's life. Colwyn, Torkel, Bardolph, and Oswin are trapped inside a large dome. Colwyn attempts to open a hole in the dome with the glaive, while the other three search for any other passageway. The three fall through an opening and are trapped between slowly closing walls studded with huge spikes, sound familiar, which kill Bardolph.
So I'm going to assume that most of our listeners, if they've made it this far, have not seen this movie. So I have to describe the fire mare. Okay. So the fire mare is a type of horse. It looks like a Clydesdale. And the special ability of this species of horse is that it can travel a top speed of 1,000 leagues in 24 hours. They're going so fast that their hooves actually catch fire. Don't worry, people. It doesn't hurt them. And they go so fast, they can essentially fly. And these things are out there, these mystical beasts. Are they difficult to catch, Gene? No, this bumbling group of idiots with like 3 ropes somehow corral them into this like area. They tie them up. They're now flying these damn things around. The fire mares are galloping. Liam Neeson looks like he's on one of those coin-operated rides in front of a supermarket. He's giggling. He's smiling. He's got this grin and the firing hooves. And I said, what the fuck am I watching?
Did you guys catch the scene earlier when Liam Neeson straight up slaps a horse in the eye and then he pulls its bridle over the other eye? That horse looks terrified. It's wide-eyed and like kind of trying to pull away from him. And they didn't even edit it out. Like they did not give a fuck.
Gene, 100%. PETA back in the day obviously did not have the strength it does now because they abuse these animals. Today we get the end that says no animals harmed in the making of this movie. I'm pretty sure this film would say a lot of animals were harmed in the making of this movie. They get these beautiful, majestic beasts and they're climbing up and stumbling and falling off of walls. This is not fake. This is like in Conan when they put out those trip lines to trip the horses. These poor horses, they must have been wanting to get off set quicker than Liam Neeson.
I mean, they abused the people, too, to be fair. Like, a lot of these actors were put in very dangerous stunts. And yet we got what I would think is the worst action we've seen in any Shat movie. The sword fights, atrocious. The stunts are laughable. At one point, that, like, stone doorway is crushing Rel, the Cyclops. And Colwyn shouts out, Torkel, get your axe in the opening. And Torkel jogs over and then he presses the blade of his axe against one side of the opening and then yells back to Colwyn, it's no use. Dude, of course it's no use. That is not how you jam a closing doorway. And then seconds later, I could not believe it. Torkel does like some weird forward roll with his axe. Yes. No one bothered to edit that out.
Right. Well, and then you get the scene with like all of the pointy, sticky things coming out, and dude just lays there as slow motion the stick like goes through his gut. And I'm thinking to myself, just cut them off with your swords. Like, you've got broadswords. There, you can actually see the wood wiggling as it's moving toward them. Like, this is not a thick piece of wood. Cut that motherfucker and live.
Ash, cut them? How about you just wiggle out of the way? They're slow moving spikes. Just move your body and your torso.
Well, beyond that, his comrades that are 5 feet away from him are like, don't pick up the knife, because the knife is what's making them move. Just don't touch it. They're telling you, fucking listen to somebody. When he finally dropped it, I was like, oh, he figured it out. No, he was dead.
Well, and beyond the ridiculousness of the stunts within the fortress, was anybody else completely confused by like the geography of the fortress? Because like, how does Lyssa get from the weird red eye to the hand? And then why is there a hand that turns into a fireplace and then a beautiful like Beauty and the Beast pink rose? And then why are all the walls in the entire fortress backlit like a TJ Maxx dressing room? And like, why don't they, just figure out how to survive the dumbest set booby traps of all time? Like, this place makes no sense. And where you were, disappointed, Big D, in the weapon, for me, I'm like, oh, like this fortress, because, it's cool. It disintegrates and it moves and transports someplace else every day. I'm like expecting it to be like this really badass place that's like scary and kind of creepy. And instead, you get just something that's really lame. And the weapon I can forgive, but like if you get the fortress wrong, the movie isn't going to be anything.
And it's weird because, like you said, Ash, the set designs aren't particularly bad. They just don't connect. And they also don't provide room for anything particularly interesting to happen. And the reason why movies like Temple of Doom or Stargate work is that you can see a few rooms and then your brain can imagine how it all clicks together, right? Here we've got a series of rooms that make no sense. And so your mind is just working overtime to try to make a story out of it or an image out of it, and it's not working.
But I'm trying to figure out, they can conquer worlds, multiple worlds. Where's the guards? How about we see like the guards positioned everywhere? There's a few guards here and there. And the Beast is obviously trying to seduce Lyssa. He doesn't want to just force himself on her. He could have. When he does the changeling, he's like, would you like me like this? And he gets the red-eyed version of Colwyn. But he says, you're free to move around, basically as long as you don't leave. If he's trying to seduce her, wouldn't you make it opulent? Make it beautiful. Make it like a palace. Make it look something where she'd be like, I could stay here. Maybe I could sleep with the Beast. Maybe it wouldn't be that bad.
I mean, the dome room was pretty sweet. It had like that white, like Gagarin architecture to it. I could get down with that. I mean, it's no Deacon Frost apartment, but come on. Well, Colwyn breaches the dome and finds Lyssa. He attacks the Beast, injuring it with the Glaive, which becomes embedded in the Beast's body. With nothing to defend themselves against the Beast's counterattack, Lyssa realizes that they must quickly finish the wedding ritual, giving them the linked power to manipulate fire, with which Colwyn slays the Beast. His death frees Torkel and Oswin from the spike room, and they rejoin Colwyn and Lyssa, then Ergo and Titch, as they make their way out of the crumbling fortress, which is pulled off the planet and into space. Colwyn and Lyssa, now king and queen of the combined kingdom, named Torkel as Lord Marshal. As the surviving heroes depart across a field, the narrator repeats the opening prophecy that the son of the queen and her chosen king shall rule the galaxy. I know a lot of people didn't like The Phantom Menace, but I still have a soft spot for the Star Wars prequels, particularly that pulse-pounding Duel of the Fates. It's still one of my favorites. And yeah, it's because we lose a beloved character. And yeah, it's because we see Obi-Wan use lessons from Qui-Gon Jinn, oh hey, Liam Neeson, to defeat Darth Maul. And yes, it's the coolest meditation has ever looked on screen. But what really makes Duel of the Fates sing is Darth Maul. Like, he's acrobatic, he's sinister, he's got that cool-ass lightsaber. That's a solid final fight for a movie. You compare that to Krull, where it's like a rubbery head in the darkness spitting lightning loogies until a dude throws a sentient ninja star at him and then burns him with his wife's fire. Like, it's so disappointing. It makes no sense, and it's not fun to watch.
Yeah, exactly. But we get back here, to the legend, their son will rule the galaxy. How about we just rule the planet first, people? Let's slow our roll down. We'll slow down the galaxy. Okay. They don't even have the technology to fly. They need horses to fly, let alone go into space. That's not something that is realistic. You're still swinging swords, people. Let's slow our roll, right? But Colwyn, maybe he's going to use this new magical flame-throwing hand that he's got, which seems to be powered by the love of a woman. Is this something like Dune, where all of them can harness the power of the love of a woman and maybe take over the galaxy with their flaming hands?
I think they're going to give birth to another beast. I mean, think about it. So the prophecy says that their son will rule the galaxy, right? What if it doesn't say he's going to be a good guy?
Gene, what if this is like The Thing? What if that's not Colwyn? That is actually the beast version of Colwyn. They think they've won, and the beast is actually fulfilling the prophecy. Fuck, this movie's
awful.
Part 2. Let's get it made, people. Let's get it made.
I mean, if it didn't pull in only $16 million on a budget of $50 million, they might have had a sequel and answered those questions.
Well, I think you just wrote season 1 season closer. That's your cliffhanger.
Boom.
Yeah. As they're walking away.
If only UPN were still around.
Man, picture that. Colwyn turns around and we get the red eyes for a split second.
And then Vincent Price laughs.
Would have been good. Exactly.
Well, now is the time in the podcast where we give our wipe score for Krull. The wipe score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get out of your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is discovering that the real Glaive is the friends you made along the way. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It's being stabbed to death by Prince Colwyn and turning into a subterranean meat sack. I honestly had high hopes for this movie in the first 10 minutes. Like, the special effects in the opening credits looked clean. The setting looked nice. The Black Fortress was impressive. And like you said, Big D, I love a good futuristic Renfest look to a movie. But from the start, things went rapidly downhill. And unfortunately, the movie got worse as it built up. It made Lady Hawk look like Game of Thrones. And honestly, it made me want to write an apology to George Lucas. This movie is worse than Willow. I'm giving it 4 3/4 wipes.
Gene, this movie was far worse than Willow. I think the score, some of the production value helps it, but there's no way around it. It is a bad film. It is something that I think you will watch ironically, but I don't think anyone will watch for entertainment value. I would give it more than a 5 if I could. If like we were allowed like some once every 200 movies, a 6 wipe movie, to where you shit, you fall off the toilet, you keep shitting, you have dysentery. That is what this movie is. This movie is some kind of stomach. You've had gas station sushi. You have to have a piece of your colon taken out. This movie is a 5 wipe film.
It's a diverticulitis wipe. Yeah, I mean, guys, this movie is not great. Here's the thing. I think that movies like this show us why the Lord of the Rings movies are so incredible. Because it is not easy to do a fantasy movie correctly. They are movies, and it is a genre that can turn cartoonish really, really quickly. The covers of fantasy books become like the reality. And I'm a part of this group, like nerd alert moment, where like I'm doing this like race thing where every day when I run, I log it and like I'm running the whole length of the path that Sam and Frodo walk together throughout the entirety of the Lord of the Rings. And so it's 5 parts, it's 5 medals, and it's like 400 and something miles, right? And my whole reason of sharing this is there are people on the group that are doing this around the world. And there are like your normal people like me who love fantasy. And then there are your people who like are running and walking at the gym and like they're Hobbit ears. And they're your people who would love a movie like this, right? Like there's a fine line in fantasy between Game of Thrones and shit, or The Lord of the Rings and shit. And this one unfortunately falls on the shitty side. It's a perfect example of what happens when fantasy gets out of control. So I don't think it's a 5 wipe movie. I hold that for very special occasions, but I think it's really bad. I think it's 4.5 wipes.
All right, with 4.5 wipes from Ash, 4 3/4 wipes from me, and 5 wipes from Big D, that gives us an average wipe score of 4.75 wipes for Krull.
So Gene with a score of 4.75 wipes. That now ties us in the 263 spot with Tequila Sunrise. It is slightly better than Willow and slightly worse than Safe Men, Fletch Lives, and Showgirls. There are actually 4 movies worse than this. Willow, Speed 2, In the Mouth of Madness, and our worst film ever, Student Bodies.
And I think all those are worse than this movie.
And none of those cost $50 million to make.
No.
So, Gene, we've got a couple voicemails this week, and let's start off with Alexander.
Hey, Shat Crew, this is Alex from the Secondary Heroes podcast. I have been meaning to send in a voicemail for the longest time now, and I'm finally getting around to it, and it's because of the Full Metal Jacket episode. Please, maybe we give disclaimers on some of the stories, because that story of the little girl made me want to turn off the podcast, and I wanted to run home from my job, wherever I was. I wanted to run home as fast as I could just to hug my baby. My God, that story just shook me. What a gut punch. Throw maybe a little disclaimer at the beginning, please, if we're going to tell stories like that. Anyways, definitely love the podcast. Love every episode. Full Metal Jacket, a little heavy, but definitely still tuning in for everything. This has been Alex from the Secondary Heroes podcast.
So it's a war movie. We're talking about how he's committing suicide and murdering people. And so I threw in a real world, allegorical, anecdote here. It's fucking Shat the Movies. The fact that we're called Shat the Movies should be enough of a fucking disclaimer.
I just like that Alex makes Kevin Brackett Benito Mussolini. He's I thought Kevin was the nicest dude. Alex is I had to run home and hug my daughter after hearing about, for those who missed the Full Metal Jacket episode, it was a story about Ash's dad being called to a landmine cleanup and picking up a child's body, and the guts all fell out. Which, yeah, it's disturbing. That's why he's disturbed by it.
Well, and to the point of my father there, my dad listened to that episode and he loved that episode. And he's like, that was a perfect moment to share that story. Thanks for sharing it. So
do you think,
I'm glad I lived through it so you could tell it on your movies podcast.
On your movie podcast that somebody needed a fucking disclaimer for. He would have been furious if we had disclaimed that.
So do you think Alex saw, oh, wow, they're doing Full Metal Jacket. This will be an uplifting tale.
A romp is good time.
Let's listen to it. Wow, what's going to happen?
Let's follow it up.
Shot himself in the head. Oh, I wasn't ready for the girl death.
Let's follow it up with Jacob's Ladder and see what happens when people die but don't want to.
I think it tells us a lot about Alex that he was not at all disturbed by Ash's costumes or butt stuff.
No. Hey, I kind of appreciate that.
So we've got one more voicemail. This comes from Jen W.
Hi, my name's Jenny. I am from England, Essex in England. I'm looking to commission Never Been Kissed with Drew Barrymore in it. I remember watching it when I was 15 with my friends and loving every second of it, and also crying a lot at the egg throwing scene. I haven't worked out how to commission this, but I will do that and follow up. But I love your podcast. It's really helped me. I think you're all very interesting, jolly characters. So, and have really good chemistry. So thank you for everything you're doing. And we'll go from there. Thanks. Bye.
Big D, have you seen Never Been Kissed?
I've not.
Oh, God.
What is it? Am I going to cry? Is it like a Notebook type?
No. But just your whole thing about
the British
pedophilia and predatory adults. No. Oh boy.
Really?
Oh, I'm not Josie Grossi anymore.
Oh man, I'm excited now. Listen, so Jenny, if you want to go to shatpod.com/support, it tells you the steps. Basically, we're approving it right now. Pedophilia, I'm all about it. I think it'll be great. No, hold on. That's not what I meant.
Don't tell Alex.
That's not what I meant. You know how I always joke about seeing abuse and whatever, and you said I thought Never Been Kissed. I thought it was like a romantic comedy.
It's about Drew Barrymore was a really unpopular girl named Josie in high school. And then she becomes a copywriter for a newspaper and she wants a story. And so they send her back to high school for her to get to know that high school and what it's like to be a teenager today.
So she pretends to be a teenager?
She pretends to be a teenager.
All the way.
Through
Wow.
the school. And spoiler alert,
does she
she's
hook up?
kissed by the end of it.
Oh, okay. I guess this would be great. So Jenny, please, shatpod.com/support. We've given your approval. Just it walks you through the final steps, but get it on the calendar.
What do we have coming up next week, Big D?
Gene, next week, set in 1985, Adam Sandler plays a nice guy with a broken heart who's stuck in one of the most romantic jobs in the world, a wedding singer. He loses all hope when he is abandoned at the altar by his fiancée. He meets a young woman named Julia who enlists his help to plan her wedding. He falls in love with her and must win her over before she gets married. Commissioned by our good friend Steve W., released in 1998, and this one is long overdue.
Well, thank you, Steve, for commissioning the upcoming movie, and thank you, Lawrence, for commissioning Krull. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat The Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat The Movies. You can email us, hosts@shatthemovies.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, Watchmen, and Westworld, which is coming back June 26th. If you have unsubscribed from our Westworld podcast, resubscribe to it so you get all those episodes. We'll be having a preview episode plus weekly episodes. You can find all that information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever a fine podcast can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D and Ash, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
Before the internet, before cell phones, before rollerblades, there was a time
Everybody on the dance floor. Very nice, Grandma Molly.
when Robbie Hart was the most popular wedding singer around.
You spin me right round, baby, right round. Like a record, baby, right round, round, round. Hey, somebody get some pants on that kid.
Until he got stood up at his own wedding.
I woke up this morning and I realized I'm about to marry a wedding singer.
Once again, things that could have been brought to my attention yesterday.
New Line Cinema presents
Is it true that you're in the middle of a nervous breakdown?
Jenny, thank you very much for listening and calling in, and I hope you choose to let us watch it for you.
Let us watch it for you?
Jenny, thank you very much for the support. We love having you along the journey, and if you do choose to commission it, fuck yes, Jesus Christ. This is going to be a cold open. I'm just going to stop talking. Jenny, thank you for writing. Oh, Jesus. It's too late. Jenny, thank you very much for calling in. Have a great day.
Thank you for letting us get together and watch it for you.
What do we have coming up next week, Big D?